Hey friends, it's Justin and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I've got some wild inspiration to share with you using some of my favorite Altenew products, and also I'm going to give you a little bit of instruction for how to use that keyhole system for easy die cut layering. Now, I do have all products from today's video in the description below, and stick with me as I do have a special offer that I'm going to mention later on in the video. Now for today's card, we're going to use the Elephantastic die set, the Pegboard Panels die set, the XOXO and More die set, and the Rock Collection enamel dots. And we'll be using all of these products together to create a truly wild greeting card. Now with my stamp wheel ready, we're going to be using some Evening Gray Fresh Dye ink to blend around this panel of white cardstock so that we can get this white cardstock pretty gray. I want to blend it almost entirely. So I'm going to use a blending brush around all four edges, and I'm going to start by bringing that evening gray color from the edges to the center of the panel. Now I do want the center to be a little bit lighter than the edges, and because we're going to go in now with some Moon Rock Fresh Dye ink, which is the next color darker in this family of colors, and I'm going to sort of repeat the process of blending the edges of our panel, kind of bring it in towards the center, but I want to keep building those colors up so that it's darker the further you get to the edge. Now let's use Lava Rock ink as the last of our gray inks, and I am going to just keep blending this ink along the edge, repeating the process as we were previously done, but this one is just going to kind of dance around the outskirts of our panel of ink. Now I'm going to use that lava rock and smush it down onto my glass mat, wet it a little bit with water, and then use a clean watercolor brush to pick up that lava rock ink and splatter it onto our panel. This is going to add some really fun detail and sort of give the card panel a little bit more of an earthier vibe. So once I get all of my splattering taken care of, I'm going to bring this up a little closer to the camera just so you can see how those splatters really add to that final element for this panel. Now, using some Misty Sage ink, I am going to blend the edges of a 3.5-inch square panel of that same white cardstock, and we're going to do the same sort of method we did with our gray background, where I'm using the Misty Sage to blend around each of the edges and wanting to bring it pretty close to the center, but we're going to keep the center the lightest and the edges the darkest. The next color that we're going to go in with is Mossy Meadow, and this is going to be the second of our three colors. I'm going to use that same blending brush and just sort of keep blending those edges, bringing our color closer to the center, but not as close as we did with our previous color. So once I'm done with Mossy Meadow, we're going to go on to Green Opal as the last fresh dye ink that we'll be using, and I'm going to blend around the edges to get them a little darker. This one, I'm going to keep it closer to the edges than to the center, and that is going to complete the ink blending for this panel. Now, I do want to do a little bit more splattering, so we're going to take that green opal ink, smush it off to the side, and then wet it down with a little bit of water. Then finally pick it up with a clean watercolor brush to then splatter onto our panel, just to kind of continue with that splatter detail. I just love how it looks, and especially this green color is so earthy, so pretty, and I'm excited to use it. Now, using that Elephantastic die set, we're going to use the largest elephant, which I've already die cut from light gray and white cardstock. And this is where I'm going to be able to show you how we can ink blend the panels with some Moon Rock Fresh Dye ink. Now, I'm going to use that Moon Rock color because we've already used it for the background of our card panel. And I'm going to use a mini blending brush just to sort of go in and blend up each of the edges with our elephant. And I love adding that little bit of shading. I think it really gives our die a lot of character. I'm using some residual Moon Rock ink on my blending brush to blend up the tusks of the elephant as well to give it some shading. Now let's talk about that keyhole system for die cutting. So as you can see, we've got a keyhole in place and there's a little etching that says 1 on that base layer. Now for the second piece, there's another keyhole and there's also an etching that says 2. So this is going to be going on top of layer number 1. So I am going to put some liquid adhesive on the back of this die cut, and I am going to layer those keyholes so they lay exactly on top of one another, and this means that I'm going to have no guesswork with putting all of this together. Now we're going to move on to the panel that's got a number 3 etching on it because 3 will go on top of 2. And I'm going to put some liquid adhesive onto the panel and then layer it so that keyhole once again is lining up perfectly so that all of our layers are just wonderfully stacked one on top of another. Now the tusks have the number 4 etching, so we are going to put liquid adhesive on the back of these tusks. And what we'll do, I got to get my tweezers out just because they're a little bit smaller and it's going to give me a little bit better handling of the die cut. So we're going to get that liquid adhesive on and then line up that keyhole once again, making sure everything is all lined up as it's supposed to be, and then push it down into place. Then after we have the tusks perfectly positioned, and I see I use my tweezers a little bit just to make sure everything is lined up, we are going to use etching number 5, which is the face of the elephant, but it's not the final layer, it's just our final keyhole layer. We are going to lay this, put some liquid adhesive on the back of the panel, and then line up that keyhole one final time. So here you see we're lining everything up. All those keyholes are perfectly stacked on top of each other. Now all that's left is using our final die cut to adhere on top of the etching number 5 panel, and then this also will fully cover up the keyhole so we don't actually see it for our final project. So that's why I didn't blend it all etching layer number 5 because it was going to get entirely covered up, but I did go ahead and use that Moonrock ink on top of this top layer for the face that covers up that keyhole. So I'm making sure to use some pressure with my fingers to get everything nicely into position, and our elephant is all done. Wasn't that easy? So now let's do a little bit of background. So we're going to use that pegboard panels die set, the square die cut that's included, and we're going to pull in that green blended and splattered square that we worked with earlier in our card. Now using that square pegboard, I am going to line this up and I'm going to tack it down with a little bit of mint tape. And then off camera, I am going to die cut this panel, and I'm also going to poke out all of those little holes, and here you have what our final little pegboard looks like. Now, I'm not going to use mine for any stitching, but that's definitely a fun feature you can do with it. Using the EXO and EXO and More die set, we're going to use a sentiment that says hello and friend by combining those two words with their outline. I have die cut the shadows from a green cardstock and the words themselves from some white cardstock, and I just need to adhere those white words on top of the corresponding letter piece. Now, because these die cuts are a little bit fine, I use my fingers to sort of brush off any excess adhesive because I don't want to push the die cut down onto the shadow and have liquid adhesive sort of ooze out from underneath. I just don't think that looks really nice on the final card, and this is a great way to minimize the amount of adhesive present. So I've got my hello word all done, and I just need to make sure to adhere down our friend word as well. I'm going to take off that excess adhesive with my finger and then carefully layer the word friend into place. Now, friend does contain an I, and so you want to make sure to keep track of that little dot above the I. I feel like those are always things I forget about when crafting, and I just use a little bit of adhesive to put where I'm going to put that little dot of white paper, and then I'm going to pick it up with my tweezers oh so carefully and position it into place. And once I get that little dot into place, I've got my two die cut words ready to go. I just need to put them off to the side with some little bit of pressure because I think it's going to really help to have a little extra pressure to make sure all of the letters connect. So we've got our elements ready, and I just need to start adhering them together. So I'm going to creatively stack the hello and friend on top of each other with a little bit of creative overlapping. I am going to put the H of hello on top of the F with friend, but I'm also going to tuck the little tail of the O in hello behind the top of the letter D in friend. And this is just going to really position our sentiment pretty nicely. I'm going to add that acrylic block to get some pressure and make sure everything is connected, and then use some liquid adhesive on our ink blended pegboard panel to put it fairly centered in our card. So I really like using this pegboard panel as a little bit of an embellishment for our background piece. And of course we got to make our focal image and sentiments pop as well. So I'm going to use some foam tape on the back of our elephant and our sentiment. Now, as I get the foam tape on the back of my pieces and onto my card, I thought it would be a fun time to mention that I do have an exclusive offer for you. Using code JustinBundle, you're going to be able to save 30% off Instant Dimension Foam Tape Bundle. You get 4 different sizes, and all you need to do is add the Instant Dimension Foam Tape Bundle to your cart and use code JustinBundle, like it says on screen, to get 30% off at checkout. It's a one-time code, and this offer will be available to you until April 29th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, back to our card, we are going to use some enamel dots from the Rock Collection set to add a little bit of detail to our card before we fully finish things up. I'm going to be using the 2 lightest colors included in the Rock Collection enamel dots, and I'm going to use the 3 sizes that are available as well. There's sort of a little dot, a medium-sized dot, and a large-sized dot, and I just like that variation of color. We're going to use some liquid adhesive on the back of our panel so that we can pop it on to an A2 sized card base so that it is ready to go and be sent off to a friend. I always like to do this as one of my last steps just to have everything nice and final and provide that nice sturdiness that our cardstock provides. So here you can see we have our elephant greeting card all completed and ready to be sent off to a friend. I hope that this tutorial showed you how easy that keyhole system is for putting our Altenew die cuts together. It's truly a system that works for everyone and makes it super easy. Now, don't forget, all products used in this video are linked in the description below for your shopping convenience. If I have inspired you to go make a purchase yourself, using those links helps support me as an artist at no additional cost to you. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today, and I can't wait to create again with you really soon. Goodbye.